This is your tech news briefing for Friday, January 6th. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. The exhibition floor at CES opened yesterday, and as we've been telling you all week, this year's tech show has been shaped by the pandemic, global politics, and of course, the different demands we have for our gadgets and devices nowadays. With me now to talk about some of the best things she's seen so far in Las Vegas, and some of the trends that are emerging from this year's show, is news editor for WSJ's personal tech team, Shara Tipkin. Hi Shara, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So Shara, at CES, this is where you guys on the personal tech team, you don't so much look at the viability of products, you look at some products that are sometimes a little bit out there, a little bit weirder. So tell us some of the things that really stood out to you this year.
Yeah, so generally for personal tech, we really are only looking at things that are real, that we can use, that are going to be significant in our lives. And CES is the one place where we just ignore all of that and just go crazy looking at all of the crazy stuff, whether it will ever come to devices or not. So for me, I've spent a lot of time looking at some of the sort of components that could form our new products. So Samsung Display has a bunch of cool private demos of these tablets and phones that fold in different directions. So they can fold like 360 degrees, or you can fold this like giant tablet, but then also slide out the edge of it to make it an even bigger tablet.
So these kind of flexible screens?
Yes, exactly. Flexible screens. And LG showed off this sound technology that basically it's pieces of kind of paper is honestly what they look like, that they put around the interior of the car. You don't see them, but they replace speakers that you would normally have in the car. And you could put them in the headrest, you can put it in the front display. And the idea is it basically sends like sound waves that bounce off of this paper. So instead of having speakers, which kind of add cost and add weight to things like electric vehicles, you'd have these around the car. So it would make the car slightly lighter in the grand scheme of an electric vehicle. I don't know how much that really matters, but it's cool to see that kind of stuff where companies are really trying to think of ways to improve the tech we have, but also just show off cool things that may never make it to market, but some that we could see in a couple years.
Yeah, that is really interesting. It's sort of these parts of things that might end up in the technology that we come to use. I mean, what's been one of the coolest products that you've seen so far?
So there's something that I just loved because I thought it was adorable. Wowie is this robot kids toy company that's just kind of been this giant forever. And they made this pet dog that there's like millions of ways it can be customized. When you set it up, it's just like totally random. You don't know what color its eyes are going to be and, you know, how it's going to act. Its bark could be high or could be low. It could be a lazy dog. It could be a really energetic dog. And it's only $80 and it's going on sale this fall. And so something like that, I feel, is something that we could see a lot of people buying for their kids for the holidays. And it's just one of those things at CES where you're like, oh yeah, this is fun. This isn't going to totally change our lives, but it's just fun.
I mean, that sounds like one product that might, help a lot of parents who got kids begging for a pet. But have you seen any other products that maybe in the next year or coming years might become staples of our lives?
Yeah, there's one that I saw that is pretty big news. Qualcomm is this giant chip maker. So their chips are in basically all Android phones that we buy in the US and globally as well. And it formed a partnership with Iridium, which is a satellite company, to bring satellite messaging to Android phones. So this is something that is already in iPhones. So if you're stranded and you don't have cell service, you can connect with emergency services. And this has already been used to save people's lives. With Qualcomm and Iridium, what they're planning to do is they're partnering with Garmin to provide emergency services. But then they're also going to let you message whoever you want through it. So it's going to kind of be up to the messaging company, the handset makers, the carriers to decide what that looks like and how much it costs and, what happens for the consumer. But that's coming in devices the second half of this year. And that's something that's real and something that people can be using pretty soon.
So that means what I'm communicating over satellite. So even when I don't have, say, my 5G connection, I'll be able to message my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're hiking in Northern California, which there's not cell service in a lot of places, you can text your friend to say, hey, I'm going to be late for lunch. You have to have a clear view of the sky. Iridium says that it works in rain, snow, fog, everything. So you don't have to wait for like the only blue skies day. But basically, you'll be able to text a friend and they can text you back. And they took a bunch of reporters out to the desert in Las Vegas to show us, it was like an hour drive and then a 5-minute demo to see this actually being done.
So you can let your friends know you'll be late for lunch when you're out in the desert.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sorry, I am running late for my next meeting. That's basically me, all of CES.
Have there been any big trends that you've noticed this year?
There's kind of always the same stuff of new flashy TVs, new kind of weird stuff in computers. One trend that we were really interested in this year that we were looking at is accessibility. So these are products that are built for people who have vision problems or hearing problems or mobility issues. And some of the stuff being shown is just really cool. There are glasses that do live captions as someone's talking. There's a wheelchair that can climb stairs. So there's just a lot going on here that isn't just the like whiz bang crazy gadget, but are things that companies are really trying to make to improve people's lives. And that is always really fun to see.
Does that tell us anything about where tech might be headed in 2023 and beyond, or is that just a CES thing?
I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking about this a lot. I went to CES in 2020, so the last in person before the pandemic, and it was just so crowded, so many people here. And this year they're expecting about half the kind of normal amount, so around 100,000 people in Las Vegas. But I feel like we aren't seeing a lot of kind of the totally out there products that we've seen in the past. There are robots here, but usually there's more of that. And yes, there are flying cars here for sure. There's some of this futuristic stuff, but as my colleague Dalvin Brown reported, a lot of startups, it's harder for them to get funding, to like make hardware. And with inflation, kind of everything going on in the economy, people are maybe being a little more cautious with what they're showing and not necessarily doing as much at the show or unveiling as much as they normally would. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of happens in the coming weeks, if there's any sort of update or kind of insight that we get looking back at CES.
All right, that's our news editor for the WSJ's personal tech team, Shara Tipkin. Thanks so much for joining us, Shara.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for Tech News Briefing this week. Our producer is Julie Chang. Our executive producer is Chris Sinsley. And I'm your host, Zoe Thomas. Thanks for listening and have a great weekend.